Okay, well, welcome to an edition of Islandstats Sports Talk with Ashley Yearwood. Good afternoon, Ashley.
Afternoon.
Well, you've come to the end of your college career, and sadly for some, you've decided to put a halt on your swimming career. Let's go back to starting, and we're here at the Bassa Pool, so this is one of the places you got started.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about when you got started and what was your drive behind trying to get a college career out of the sport of swimming?
So I started competitively swimming when I was 7 or 8. I think I was 7 with Harbor Swim Club. And I think from the very start, people noticed that I had a talent, that not that I was better than other people, that I was more interested in all of those kinds of things. And for me, it became something where I could have fun with my friends and also be good at something. So that kind of pushed me from when I was 7 until teenage years. Just like being able to be in the pool and being with your friends and still getting a good workout, like, and pushing yourself, and that was all something that I loved doing. And then I went to boarding school when I was 14 years old, and swimming kind of changed. It was less about having a good time, less about doing it for yourself and more about doing it for a team. Practices became more intense, and I still loved it. Sophomore year, I got injured. Well, so my second year of high school, I got injured, and I had to take an entire year off, which made coming back for my third year really hard. But I decided I was going to do it, and I'm really glad I did. So I think taking that year off kind of pushed me to want to keep going and do it through college, wanting to know how far I could go, knowing that I had an injury that does affect swimming and affect how I compete and everything. I wanted to see how far I could go and what I could do. So.
How much of that time off did you doubt yourself about a comeback?
The whole time.
Yeah.
I think from the very start, it started off with me not being able to swim, but I was still going to practices and kicking every day. That became incredibly frustrating. That moved on to me coming to practices and not getting in the water, being a team manager, which then moved to me not coming to practices at all and getting involved in other sports. It was frustrating to be on the pool deck and not being able to compete and being able to practice. And as hard as those practices looked from the outside, there's something about being on a team that makes you want to be in the water with them. So I think all of those things kind of pushed me to want to come back, but at the same time I didn't know if I could. It was discouraging, starting off with not being able to swim for 6 weeks, moving on to 6 more weeks, moving on to 6 more weeks. Eventually they told me that I would need to take the entirety of the year off. And I think when I got that from the doctors, that's when I really was like, there's no point in me continuing. And it was a good thing that I took that time off of not coming to practice at all, because it made me miss it. It made me want to come home in the summer and attempt to start swimming again, start getting better, so that I could, in fact, swim in the fall when I got back to school.
You're how I want to say this. You're a small person. You're one of the smallest ones growing up around here and even competing amongst your school friends and so forth. How much of that is driving you to say, you know what, I'm going to show these people that someone my size can get back and make a lot of noise?
Yeah, I've
definitely always been the smallest. Even when I was 7, being on this, I still have memories of being on this pool deck and being just minuscule compared to everybody else. And I think a lot of people always doubted me because of that. In school, a lot of people because in the States, it's swimming and diving, and I got a lot of, oh, are you a swimmer or a diver? You must be a diver. And being short comes with its issues. Like, I did have to come to terms with the fact that I might not ever be able to swim as fast as someone who's 6 feet, just because of my size. And that was something I came to terms with at a young age, because my entire family is short. I knew I wasn't going to be tall. Was never in denial about that. And so I don't really know if I was ever trying to prove to people that short people can do it, but rather knowing that in myself that I can do it, and being short has its issues, but it's not everything. You mean, in college, athletes, like, they have different divisions, and D3 is full of people who don't look like they should be doing the sports that they're doing, and proving to people that they are good at these sports no matter what. So yeah, I don't think it was really about proving, but more about just myself loving it and wanting to do it.
When you realized which discipline was going to be your strongest, how old were you, and how did your focus change?
I don't know.
College, you went through backstroke, you went through several things, but was backstroke considered your strongest discipline?
I was actually terrible at backstroke when I was a child. Really bad at it. I used to sink down to the bottom of the pool, which is why it was so funny for me this year to have so much success in backstroke. But I think the first stroke that I really got good at was fly. And a lot of my coaches always said that my dance background was a main proponent of that. And so I found that out at a young age, and I loved doing fly because no one else was in those races. No one else was in those races, and you didn't have the pressure of trying to beat anybody. And when there was someone else in the races, it was fun. It was like a change. And so that was at a young age. Probably started doing fly, like actually competing fly, when I was 11-ish. And then after my injury, which happened, I think I was 13 or 14, I stopped doing fly for a while, focused on freestyle. Still did a little bit of fly, always have done. I limit myself to the 50 fly now because I just never wanted to get to the point where I would be re-injuring myself or making it worse. So always loved fly, always wanted to keep doing it. But then I think my senior year of high school is when backstroke became a stroke that I started to work on. My school, my coach, Coach Flack, he would put you in every single event. For every single meet. Now, if you were good or bad, it didn't matter. You swam almost every single event, and so I swam the 100 backstroke at one of my last meets there, and I broke a minute for the first time in yards. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, probably never gonna swim backstroke again, but it was great that I got to break a minute. Went to college, realized that you had to have 3 main events instead of 2 main events. So my main events had always been the 100 free and the 50 free. So my coach gave me the choice between doing the 100 back and the 100 fly at the end of my freshman year. It was right before conference. We were doing the entries for conference. And he said, do you want to swim the 100 fly or the 100 back? And I was like, really flustered in the middle of a hard set, like, 100 back. Just came out.
Aren't you glad it came out?
Yes. So then I started doing it more often throughout my years. I think freshman year I swam it maybe twice. Sophomore year I swam it maybe 3 times. Junior year I think I swam it the entirety of the season. And then senior year I swam it at every single meet. Going from not really swimming backstroke my freshman year to winning conference in the 100 back my senior year. And it was just, like, it's just been awesome to go from, and even before that, going from sinking at the bottom of this pool in swimming lessons doing backstroke to being good at it. So I think the only stroke I never got into is breaststroke, and I'm pretty terrible at it. Yeah, pretty bad.
Now, you used to come back a lot when you was in boarding school. You used to take part in swim meets here and so forth. What were some of the things you were able to bring back that you could fine tune and possibly work on and show people what it is you're learning and how competition is a little different abroad?
I think one of the big things that we didn't do a lot of beforehand was turns, and going off of your turns and things like that. And it wasn't just me when I came back. There's Rebecca Sharp went to boarding school and learned that as well. Julian, my sister. The thing about yards is the turns are so important because the pool is so much shorter. And I think one of the things, and Ben has said it to me a few times, that I kill people off the turns. I'll be swimming in with them, and then I do my flip turn and kick off the wall, and I'm ahead of them. And I think that was one of the things that a lot of people have started to work on now. I watched the Nationals meet last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and everyone's turns were so much better than I remember. It's the evolution of the sport, knowing that you have to, like, even in the long course pool, turns are so important. So that's definitely one of the things that I noticed, coming from the States back to Bermuda.
Growing up with your sister,
Yes.
the challenges of, because you used to do dance together, and then you used to do.
She never danced.
She never
No.
danced. Okay.
She did for a little bit, but
Right.
swimming was her thing.
Right. Then coming into swimming, what were those battles like at home? Especially because she was older, and obviously I got your record. I've got a record that's in my sights. And
Yeah.
what was that banter like?
I think when we were younger, it didn't really matter that much because we did a lot of different sports. Growing up, we were always doing sports, and she was better than me at all of them. And so I think swimming was just my thing. But then when it got to the point where we stopped doing the other sports and it was just swimming, I think there was a little bit of tension, but also we swam different races for the most part, which really helped. But I think we never really had any issues. I think whenever we had to swim against each other, it was always like, I want to beat you and I want to beat you, and whoever beats who is who beats. Like, I don't think there was any issue on if I beat her or if she beat me, which is a good thing. It really could have been bad.
What was mom and dad like during this time?
Oh, they let us do what we wanted to do with swimming. They never, I don't know, they weren't really the pushy parents who were like, you're gonna go win this or anything like that. I think they were the best kind of parents for swimming. They were so supportive with whoever won, but I don't think they ever were disappointed in any of us if we didn't do well. So.
What made you pick Denison?
So that's actually it's a story. I'm a little young for the U.S. system. A lot of people, many people start college when they're 18. I started when I was 17. And so the college search process started when I was 16 years old. And I didn't really take it seriously because I was like, I'm 16. It doesn't matter where I go to college, which it does. It 100% matters where you go. And so I got a lot of letters from swimming schools that I never answered back, just being an immature 16-year-old. And then finally I realized that, okay, I need to start getting serious about this. So I filled out all of the letters and sent them back. At my school, because it was a boarding school, we were only allowed to go on 3 recruiting trips without missing too many classes. And so I had to pick my 3 schools that I wanted to go on recruiting trips to, which I narrowed it down to Florida Southern, which I never ended up going on a recruiting trip to because I canceled it after my first 2 schools. I looked at Radford University in Virginia and Denison. And when I first got onto Denison's campus, it looked exactly like my high school. So much brick, so much land. It was honestly beautiful. But I was like, do I want to go to a school that looks exactly like my high school for 4 more years? So I struggled with that, and then I went on my recruiting trip to Radford, and the program just wasn't for me. Meeting the coach and meeting the swimmers, they were all really nice, but the swimming atmosphere and the mindset that they all had about swimming it was competitive, but it wasn't at the level where I thought I needed to be at. I think at that school you need to be yourself incredibly motivated in order to do well, and I knew from experience that I needed a coach and a team to back me up in order to, yes. And so narrowed it down between those two and decided that Denison was the right bet for me. It was a D3 school, which meant that I could focus on a lot of other things other than swimming, but also it was a D3 school that's at the top that has almost D1 swimming like practices. We train just as much as D1 schools do. And so it had that D1 atmosphere without it being so intense. Yeah. So yeah, and then my first year was kind of rough because I thought, coming from Baylor, like swim practices are so hard, like this will be just as just the same or easier, and it wasn't, and I was not prepared for that. I think my first year I was definitely thinking about, did I make the right choice? And ultimately I definitely did. Everyone needs that year to accustom, and yeah.
So that first year, you're learning new stuff and more about yourself. Is that when you decided what career path you was gonna take once swimming was gonna be done?
I kind of decided in high school. I studied communications and studio art, and I wasn't interested in art when I was in Bermuda.
Right.
Really wasn't interested in art in high school until my senior year. I took this class called digital design, and I loved it.
Right.
And that's when I decided that I wanted to pursue advertising and, in general, or like more specific, graphic design.
Right.
And throughout college, I thought it might have changed. So Denison, they don't really have, it's a liberal arts school, so they don't have specific majors.
Right.
And so I did communication major and a studio art minor because I was like, if I change my mind, like this is something that communication is so broad that I can do so many things with it.
Yeah.
But throughout college, and the more I took art classes, the more I was, this is what I want to do. Graphic design is what I want to do. And so I decided in high school, but college really like solidified it for me.
So how were you gonna manage doing the two and still try to get stronger and faster in the pool?
And that's one of the hard things. Especially in school, it's swimming in high school. Yes, high school is definitely difficult, but it's an after school thing that you do, where swimming in college, it becomes like it's a part of your schoolwork that you're doing. And one of the things with an art major or minor is sometimes classes are 4 hours long, and then you have work to do outside of that. And there would be times when I would be in the art studio until 2 o'clock in the morning doing projects, having to wake up at 5 in the morning to go to swim practice. And so it's difficult balancing swimming with school, and I think a lot of people not necessarily that they don't realize that, but I think a lot of people, especially people in university, don't realize what athletes go through with balancing their sports, getting enough sleep, getting your work done. Because, I mean, especially like athletes, we're not mediocre people. We don't want to be mediocre. There's a reason why we're swimming or doing our sports in college, is because we want to excel, and that transfers into almost everything you do in life. I'd never wanted to be mediocre in the classroom, and so trying to get my projects done to a level where I was going to get a good grade, get enough sleep, make sure you're eating right, because when it's late at night, you eat whatever you can find. And all of those aspects go into how you perform. And a lot of people can handle it and a lot of people can't. And I saw a lot of that in my school with my teammates. Like, people buckling under pressure. It happened to me a few times where I just couldn't go to practice for a day because I was so stressed about my schoolwork. And knowing that I was being at practice wasn't gonna make me feel better. It was gonna make me feel more stressed. And so I think that's one of the things I really learned how to do in university, especially with a D3 school where they care about school more or just as much as they care about your sport. Learning when it's okay to take a step back and when it's time to push it.
Okay, so first year done, learning curve, different challenges. What do you change year 2?
You just know more things. When you're a freshman, you don't know anything about any part of the school. And so when you're a sophomore, you know more things. You start getting into a habit. You know how to maybe not take that nap in the middle of the day and do your schoolwork, or maybe do take that nap in the middle of the day but make it shorter or something like that. I think sophomore year is when you learn like the tricks, and it gets a lot, not that it gets easier, but it gets more routine. So yeah, I think it's just when you're a freshman, for lack of a better word, you're dumb. You're dumb about everything. And then as you're there for longer, you start to gain knowledge and know what to do.
Now that's out of the pool. In the pool, what goals did you set for yourself for year 2?
Year 2, I wanted to do better than my first year. That was pretty much it.
Were times important?
Sometimes, not always. I personally, and Ben laughs about this all the time because I say it all the time, I don't like to set concrete goals because I'm the kind of person where either I get obsessed with the goal, and if I don't achieve it, like, it's devastating, or if I do achieve it, I think I should have made my goal harder. And so for me, it's always just been to do better than whatever I did before. Whether that means, because freshman year I got in trouble multiple times for breathing too much in my 50. And so sophomore year I tried to cut that down. That was one of the things that I worked on throughout my years, cutting down my breathing, lengthening my strokes for swimming. I think, now that I think about it, I don't know any of my times. I don't think I could tell you a specific time for any of my races. I know around like what is good and what is bad for me, but a specific time down to like the tenths, I don't think I could tell you a single one.
So you have 2 years after your second year to go, but you want to finish as strong as possible, because with 2 years to go, you still had thoughts of maybe competing after school.
Yes. Yeah. I think coming into my junior year, my sophomore year wasn't very good for swimming. A lot of things happened around the times before conference and nationals. We had a former teammate pass away the week before our conference meet, sophomore year. And I think a lot of things happened between then and the end of my season, and a lot of us didn't do as well as we could have, just from outside circumstances. And I think I really lost hope with myself during that time, not really knowing how to deal with that kind of loss. And so going into junior year, I thought I had a lot to prove to myself, and I think to other people as well. I knew I could do better than what I did, and didn't really want to let outside circumstances affect me in the pool or in my life. And so that was a big part of my junior year, was, I think for a lot of us, was not letting what happened our sophomore year or that year happen again with swimming. And I mean, I think it paid off. My junior year was probably the best year that I had at Denison with swimming wise, and I think our team did. I mean, we came second with quite a few national championships that year.
It was almost like your emerging year, your third year there. It was almost like an emerging year for your school.
Yes.
That people started to really take note of this D3 school.
Yeah. I think, well, in the events that, my relays that we won, which was the 200 free relay and the 400 free relay, we have a history, like that relay has always been good. We've had multiple people win it in the past, but there was a point where we were doing well, we were coming second and third, but we weren't doing as well as we could have. And I think that was the year when we realized that Denison is good at, like, we can do these relays, we can do individual races. Like, Emory always, they have won for quite some time, and I think that was the year when we realized that doesn't have to be the case. We're just as good as them, and we can work to beating them, kind of thing.
And your foursome kind of bonded together. There seemed to be always that every time I would see one of you in a photo, I'd see two or three of you, or what was that bond building like throughout the remainder of your school time?
Yeah, so junior year, one of the relay mates, Mary Van Leuven, went abroad for the first semester. And so the first semester was so awful for me because she had been my training partner for 2 years at that point, and I was messaging her every day like, I hope you're having fun, but please come back. And I think we just train together every single day in the same lanes. We race against each other all the time. We hang out with each other outside the pool. If a lot of the times I was pretty much almost once a day I was in Mary's room, just irritating her. Like, I don't know, there's something about, I think, relays, it's yourself, but it's also like those three other people, and knowing that they're counting on you, and knowing that they have your back, just, I don't know, it does something to your friendship, and it does something to you in the pool. I think that relay was pretty, like, well, three of us were the same for quite a while. Carolyn Kane was always on the relay with me. Mary Van Leuven was always on the relay with me. And that fourth person always changed because people graduating and everything. Sprint lane is pretty small, and so we're a close-knit group. Sprint lane, I think a lot of people get annoyed with us sometimes because of how close we are, but I mean, sprint lane's the best lane, so but yeah, it's just, there's something about being with them in and out of the pool and depending on each other for that long that just does something. You know that each other's strokes, you know when someone is doing well just by looking at them in the pool. When you're on a relay with them, I think we all knew each other's times more than we knew our own. So knowing if someone did well and knowing whether it was time to congratulate or step back and let them have their space. Going up to races, knowing whether people like to talk about swimming or be distracted. It's all something that happens when you're on a relay with someone, and yeah, I think we all meshed pretty well together.
Going into your final year, you're excited because of graduating at the end of this year, but you're also a bit sad as my swimming will come to an end with this group. What emotion runs through you trying to get through those two things? Because you can see the finish line at the start of the year.
Yeah.
What emotion goes through you personally?
Well, I think before we started senior year, I could see the finish line. And then we started, and my coach Greg wasn't taking any precautions this year. We started, our first practice was awful. Like, I still remember getting out of the pool and being like, how am I supposed to do this for an entire season? And so I think once you get into it, you kind of forget that it's about to come to an end. And towards the end of the season, my coach had to remind us a couple of times, seniors, this is almost it for you in this program. And I remember feeling happy and sad at the same time, knowing that 4 years with people, an entire part of my life was about to come to a close, was both happy because you think back of all of everything that's happened over the last 4 years, how everyone's grown close together, like the hard parts, the easy parts, the fun parts, the hard training, like everything. And then it's also sad because you realize that you're not going to have that anymore. So I think it was really conflicting for me for a lot of the year. But also being a senior and being in charge of a team, knowing that these, especially the freshmen, and we only had 3 freshmen at the beginning of the year for swimming and 2 divers, knowing that they are just these bright-eyed, like,
That was me.
children, yes, and knowing how I felt looking up to the seniors and wanting to be like that person for them, I think it kind of helps to distract you from the whole like it's about to end thing. Yeah.
Right. So as you get closer, you start to think, what am I going to do after? And obviously graphic design was one of them, but also swimming. How did you come to the decision that when you finished college, that was going to be?
It was a hard decision to make in some aspects, and then also kind of an easy decision in other aspects. I love the sport. I never want to distance myself from it. I definitely want to continue my involvement in the swimming community, but there does come a time when you personally fall out of love with something, and I think me in swimming, that definitely happened during this year. I think it's really hard to articulate these feelings, but I think with being at my school and being on a team, it was not really swimming for myself senior year, swimming for them, swimming for the freshmen, swimming for my teammates that I've known since freshman year, and swimming for the program, for the alumni that I didn't even know. But I think myself, I'm not really sure if I was swimming for myself at that point. My last year, or this past year, results-wise wasn't as good as I maybe had wanted to, and when I wasn't that upset about it at the end of the season, I knew that it was time. I think especially myself being the kind of person I was with swimming and being like just wanting to do better, knowing that I didn't do as well as I could have, and not feeling that I need to keep going, like I need to achieve this, was kind of an eye-opener for me, especially with the sport. I think a lot of people have a hard time leaving something that they've been in for so long. A lot of my teammates, I had one girl who was having a really hard time with swimming being over and wanted to keep going, but wanted to also enjoy in the end, without her teammates. And I think being in something since you were 8 years old, it becomes hard to part with it. And coming to the end of a school career and coming to the end of a swimming career for me just happened to happen at the same time. And I don't think it has to. I think if you are finishing your university and you are in love with the sport and in love with you in the sport, you need to keep going. I don't think that the end of one part of your life needs to be the end of something else. And I had to have a few conversations with some of my teammates about that, with them having issues with leaving the sport, and not really. I think one of the things that happens is people expect you to either be finished with it or to want to be finished with it when you're done with college. I think a lot of people are just oh, well, you're finished with university now, it's time to move on to other things. That means everything you were doing in university, you should be finishing. And I definitely don't think that should always be the case, but for me it just happened to be.
And you're happy with your accomplishments and your decision?
Yes. When I was watching nationals, I went to Ben afterwards and I was like, it's amazing because I thought that I would miss competing and being in the marshalling area, but I was happy just watching. I was happy to help other people and not to be in it. So definitely feel like it was the right decision, and it was hard because a lot of people expected me to keep going, not just in Bermuda but people in school as well. Like, they know, being from a small place, my chances of getting to a higher level are a lot better than theirs are, and just I was definitely expected to keep going, but I knew at the end of after my last race at nationals, when I didn't do nearly as well as I could have and not being upset at all, I knew that it would be unfair to both myself and the people who care about me in swimming to keep going.
So you're comfortable, you're at peace and all.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I do want to thank you. I do just sum up your entire swimming career. What would it, if you had to explain it to someone who'd never come to this pool before, had never seen a competition locally, you had to sum up your entire, from 7 years ago getting in here to a D3 national title. Sum it up.
Challenging. It was a lot of fun. I don't regret any part of my swimming career. So I guess to sum it up, I would say that, I mean, it was a road, and it was, I don't know how many years of my life, and there were ups and downs, but I wouldn't want to change any part of it. Like, not the injuries, not the hardships, not anything, because...
Would you say the injuries helped you to grow?
Yes, definitely. It helped me to learn how to swim more efficiently, because I don't have full strength in my right arm anymore because I have a torn labrum. So learning when to hold back in practice, when it's okay to not give it your all, knowing when it is okay to push through the pain. I think those are a lot of things that I learned, and I think those have helped me outside of the pool as well.
Well, the one thing that I always recognize is that big smile for such a small person. And that's how I want to leave it, with that big smile. Thank you very much, Ashley.
You're welcome.